Well, turns out the Elias Pettersson trade talk for the Vancouver Canucks is as much of a roller coaster as it's always been. Is this surprising? I don't really know. But we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to Elias Pettersson at the 2025 Four Nations Face-Off Tournament. Sorry Kevin Lankinen, sorry Quinn Hughes, sorry Rick Tocchet, and sorry JT Miller. We are talking all about Petey today. Because not only do we have ourselves some trade updates from folks around the NHL world, but we do have ourselves some new talking points. Yesterday, we made a video with the classic golden boy Elias Pettersson thumbnail, and I absolutely love that photo shoot that he did. So I'm gonna go out there and render out the other golden boy image to put in the foreground of this thumbnail, but the Pettersson conversations keep on going on. As always, this show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out the first link in the description to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel all in the process. This is the lineups that we had seen for Team Sweden at the Four Nations break. And while it is true that Elias Pettersson is not on the first line, he's playing with some pretty good players. He's got Adrian Kempe on his left and Filip Forsberg on his right. Is Forsberg an inevitable Vancouver Canucks trade target? Only time will tell. But there are some things that you can talk about with these lines, like, hey, is Lucas Raymond really deserving of being on the third line underneath Rickard Rakell and Forsberg? Gustav Nyquist, Elias Lindholm. Oh yeah, Lindholm's on this team. Look at that Rasmus Dahlin on the third pairing. That is ridiculous. But Hedman, Carlson, Dahlin, so many good defensemen all on this squad. Team Sweden's looking pretty good. But Elias Pettersson is not going to be tasked with the first line deployment, which is good, I guess, because JT Miller's on that third line for Team USA, right? So we'll see if JT and Petey are able to get into it a little bit. But anyways, with Pettersson getting this chance to really play with some top-tier talented guys, I mean, it should not be discredited that Adrian Kempe and Forsberg are the best wingers this guy has pretty much ever played with. You talk about Sam Lafferty, Ilya Mikheyev, even this season, Nils Höglander, Brock Besser, Jake DeBrusk. I'm sorry, but Kempe and Forsberg, whew, they blow them all out of the water. This will be a chance for Petey to find his game with the head coach that allowed him to prosper as the #1 player in Sweden all those years ago. We had ourselves some talking points, though, starting out with this. Rick Dhaliwal, Donnie and Dolly, they had agent Pat Brisson on the program earlier this morning, and Brisson said this about Elias Pettersson's season so far. He had a tough summer. He couldn't train at the level he wanted due to an injury. He is a better player and a proud player, and he is still young, and he's got lots to offer. And the interesting thing about this is that there are a bunch of people in the replies saying, oh, this is damage control by the agent. He is just making excuses. This is trying to justify Petey's bad play in 2024-2025. But the reason I think this is interesting is because Pat Brisson is saying, hey, Pettersson had an injury. He couldn't train at the level he wanted to because he was hurt, which coincides with some of the extra talk that had been floating around in this market, like, hey, Miller was on Petey's behind at the start of the year because Miller was one of the best conditioned players in the locker room. Pettersson, making 11.6, was not. Was it a lackadaisical summer? Was it a lazy summer? Or was it a hurt summer? Pettersson's not at 100%, therefore he's not able to train as hard, therefore he's not able to come into camp as in shape as he should be. Patrick Allvin said in the interview on 650 last week, oh, it's about preparation, it's about putting the work in off the ice and being able to get your conditioning up, and that was raising some more eyebrows. Hey, was Pettersson's conditioning throughout the summer last year really that bad? Was it that much of an issue that Miller was bullying the guy for it and Allvin's calling it out here? And Pat Brisson saying, nah, he didn't have this lackadaisical summer because he's lazy. He was hurt. And that completely contradicts what we had seen from Patrick Allvin last week as well. Remember the Satir Shah asking him, or was it Dan Riccio? I forgot. They were asking him on the program about Pettersson's health. And Patrick Allvin said, hey, Pettersson missed some games in December with an upper body injury. But other than that, he's played the rest of the season, and that's not answering the question at all. Even Sean Riccio said, yeah, he didn't answer the question. He's been maneuvering around it, but the agent's coming out here and saying, yeah, he was injured. So, I don't know, you can go out there and perceive those comments the way in which you want to perceive them. Is this the agent standing up for his guy and trying to make all of this controversy around him softer? Or is this just really what happened? Is it an actual reason? We know that Pettersson isn't really going to get any breaks over this Four Nations tournament time off because he's going to be playing, but we'll see what he does with Forsberg and Adrian Kempe. Now, let's go over to some other trade conversations, because a few days ago, you had Darren Dreger say this on the Barn Burner podcast, that Vancouver, hey, Pettersson's time in Vancouver has to be running out. And that was a really big comment that was talked about the other day, because Pettersson was in the midst of playing poorly after the JT Miller trade. He had the San Jose game, which was one of the worst games we may have seen out of Petey all season. But the fact that he was able to bounce back against Toronto the next game, had a really nice assist, started looking more like vintage Pettersson, was a breath of fresh air. He started to just stop thinking about it. He started to do his dekes, and he started to shoot more, which of course is what we want to see out of Petey. But now, 3 days after Darren Dreger said that Pettersson's time in Vancouver has to be running out, we had this update from Cam Robinson. The Four Nations break won't prohibit teams from making trades, but sources indicate that the Canucks have officially pulled Pettersson off of the trade market. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. He's back. It seems like Petey is no longer an asset that is available for trade, according to this Cam Robinson tweet. Now, we've been saying this over the past few years here on this YouTube channel, but Cam Robinson is one of the most connected people in the hockey world, especially who happens to have a presence on social media. He's all over the place with elite prospects and scouting, and he is a very good follow on Twitter. I love Cam Robinson. We also had ourselves a quote from Chris Johnston. This is what he had said earlier in the week as well about Elias Pettersson. I'm going to leave the link in the description of the article in which we screenshotted this quote from. I'll leave the door cracked just slightly, but let's call it a 1% shot that Elias Pettersson gets traded. A very long shot that he would still be moved before this deadline. But let's see what happens in the offseason. The Canucks want to let things breathe after that Miller trade. They want to give Pettersson a chance to regain his form. And so I don't think he's in play truly in these next 4 weeks. So, it seems like, based off of the tea leaves, the Vancouver Canucks might have officially placed Pettersson in keep territory, at least towards the end of the season. Who knows what happens at the draft, or who knows what happens in free agency, or right before free agency, I guess, because Pettersson's trade protection kicks in on July 1st. But we'll see what happens before that time. For now, though, seems like the Canucks really want to give Petey the room to do his dekes, grip it and rip it, speed, agility, power. He's a big fan of these things, and hopefully this Four Nations tournament is able to really ignite everything. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. If Pettersson has that amazing tournament, if he's over a point per game and he gets promoted to the top line, if he's consistently on the top power play, if he has an amazing tournament, there was always going to be that question like, okay, Petey, where was this with the Canucks? Why are you so good now in Sweden, but with Vancouver you were close to nothing? Is it more of an indictment against the coaching staff? Are they just treating you wrong? Are they not giving you the right matchups or the right strategies? What's happening here? But the fact that he had that Toronto game, which was really good, it was like as close to vintage Pettersson as we have seen, maybe in a few months, to be honest. Because that Toronto game happened, and because Canucks fans and the Canucks organization can finally breathe a sigh of relief, like, okay, that Petey that we like and we know he can be, he's still there. He's fighting it out, trying to break out of that cocoon and establish himself as a butterfly one more time. The fact that he had that Toronto game before the break, and it was such a good game, is an amazing sign. And it might have been the full catalyst to having the Canucks pull him off the trade block, because it's like, okay, now we know it's still there. He's got this tournament. He's probably going to do okay, at the very least. If he sucks in this tournament, then okay. Like, that is going to be the worst outcome possible for this, but I think there's a common consensus that says that Pettersson is probably going to do well. We'll see what he does, and then if he's able to carry that momentum back into Vancouver because he had it from that Toronto game, Then we'll figure it out in the summer. That seems to have been the big catalyst for this and the new trade situation with Petey. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about all these Pettersson updates? A trade does not seem to be likely at this point, and he's playing with some pretty good players. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.